What's good, fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is Constant Sports. I'm your host, Constance. And Week 10 NCAA women's rankings come out. And like I said, conference play has started. And there's already been some shakes and some moves already in the rankings wise. Um, I mean, yesterday on Sunday was some amazing basketball. We had a lot of the big teams playing yesterday, and we had some really good games as well. Um, we had some upsets this weekend with NC State losing to Virginia Tech, and we had Arizona taking down Utah, which we already know Arizona has definitely already. They have shown that they are definitely a team that can beat. They can beat anybody. They are a very feisty team. They're also young, but they have an amazing coach, and they're playing really good basketball. Really good basketball. Their what is it? Their wins and losses don't really match up to what type of team they are, and I think a lot of teams are going to go in playing them as their record shows, which is not a good thing. Utah, obviously, this is their third game losing, I believe it is, or the fourth. They're 11-4 now, but they're still a solid team. As long as they have Pele on that team and she's playing good, and they have a surrounding cast around her who can put up numbers. They just ran into a much feistier and younger team in Arizona. The NC State and Virginia Tech game, crazy, right? Amore and Keatley pretty much won that game outright. Those two players scored 31 points straight of the team's final points. They scored all 31 final points between two players, with Keatley winning, throwing up the game winner. It's not like Virginia Tech is a bad team. They made it to the Final Four. So they are a very good team. They just struggled. They lost some people. I think they rely heavily on Amore a lot. And they're starting to work the pieces a little bit more. And they're going to be a dangerous team. I mean, they're 12-2. They're still a good team, right? So we had NC State drop 3 positions. They're now currently number 6. Baylor, who is still undefeated, is up to the number 4 position. And then we have Kansas State and UConn drop some positions. But Louisville, Gonzaga, and Ohio State all came up 2 to 3 positions. Their records aren't bad as well. We had UNLV make their way into the top 25, which is definitely an interesting thing. They're 12-1. So that'd be nice to see. But I wanted the surprising team, I think, for everyone is North Carolina. And it's the fact, so they came up 6 positions, right? So they went from being not even ranked to now the number 20 team. North Carolina coming into the season, everybody had them pretty much up there at the top, seeing them make a long run into March. And it still is like that. They just hit a few roadblocks. They ran into some very tough teams, and their offense wasn't clicking for everyone. So they were struggling a little bit, but they've had 2 big wins these past few games, and I think they're starting to get their groove now, which should be scary for everyone. Because if we had them ranked high in the preseason polls, and they were ranked high for a while until they just ran into some roadblocks. And they then pretty much went from being not ranked, not ranked, to not just the number 25 team, but the number 20 team. And it's going to keep rising because they are getting better. Another team that I definitely see that will be ranked soon is possibly Ole Miss. Once the season continues to go and the wins and losses start to build up for every team, I think they're going to make their way in. They played an amazing, amazing game against LSU. Their defense is impeccable. I mean, they have like the number one defense in the country is Ole Miss. They just ran into an LSU team who decided to start playing basketball in the first half of the game instead of the team that's been playing all season, which the first half of the game or the first quarter of the game, they're just sluggish. And they come back in the third quarter. But they got the LSU that came out hot in the first half, scoring 50 points. And then they had a rough third quarter, which is definitely not like LSU. But we almost got a complete LSU game. Almost. They struggled a lot in that third quarter. And Ole Miss defense, their half-court press really put pressure on LSU, mainly Haley Van Lith, because I think the fact that she's still learning how to run point, you have to have a very confident point guard when someone is pressing you because they have to make smart decisions to get you out of that press. And I feel like once Kim saw that the press wasn't working and Haley was struggling, she pulled her out. She did some switch-ups, and then they eventually started beating the press and scoring off of that press. So that is definitely something that I think a lot of teams who watch that game is something they're definitely going to incorporate when they play against LSU. It'll be a smart move because it definitely threw them off. It threw their offense off because they wasn't getting offensive possessions. They were getting ball turned over before sometimes they even crossed the half court. So the offensive possessions went down, which means Ole Miss got a lot of quick and easy baskets to put themselves more and more in contention to go out and possibly win that game. And then, I don't know, after a timeout, I don't know what Coach Moka said in that huddle, but them girls came out and they started playing. They started looking more like LSU. They started making their shots. They started playing better defense. They started breaking that press even more to get Ole Miss out of that press. And they just, once their foot was on that pedal, they just kept it there the whole time. There was no slowing down. They were hitting their shots. LSU actually was hitting their three-pointers. They was actually shooting their three-pointers and actually making them. I believe they only missed maybe one or two three-pointers that entire game. So the offense and how they groove together is there. I do believe it's there. There was a lot of not smart passes that was made into the post that they will definitely fix. But the offense is definitely there. It's always going to be their defense. It's something that they have to build on. And this game, they focus more outside of the paint than inside of the paint, and I think that is definitely something that they don't want to do. So next games, we're going to keep seeing difference and teams getting better and better and better. South Carolina is South Carolina. They came out. They beat Mississippi State. And I think when SEC teams are playing each other, the games when you're playing in a conference game, you already know how your opponent plays because you're always going to play them, right? They're always going to play SEC teams and they're always going to play all of them. So every single year you play this team, you know how they play, you know how the coaches coach. And everything is always going to be a battle. South Carolina didn't have a great game. They did not have a great and perfect game. I believe Coach Staley even said it herself. but they found a way to win because they're used to playing that team. And as long as they keep that groove going, South Carolina is always, they're going to be the team that everyone's chasing. And you got to be a very well coached team, a very well disciplined team, a smart team, and a patient team to actually beat South Carolina. And I don't see a team like that at this moment. So, like I said, as things progress, will a team like that show up? Absolutely. There's definitely going to be a team that's going to play South Carolina from start to finish at their level. How that game turns out, I don't know. But if you can have a team that can play them from start to finish, battling back and forth up and down that court, because this team, they run. They're up and down that court the entire game. So if you can find a team that has the stamina to do that, then I think we'll definitely see a team that can give South Carolina a good game. And we're all here for it. Texas, even with Rory Harmon going down, they still haven't shown any regression yet. They're still a good team, solid team. They're still winning their games. So I'm not sure when it would happen that they would kind of start a little downfall, or even if they even do. Right? If you lose one of your players, even though it's your best player, depending on how your team steps up to the challenge of that next man up mentality, depends on how far your team will go. So as of right now, Texas has definitely had that next man up mentality, and they're continuing to fight and they're continuing to win. They have a game coming up against TCU here in a few days, which TCU started, they were 14-0, got into conference play and lost 2 straight games. Their star player, Sedona Prince, who is a transfer from Oregon, came out that she is out indefinitely with a broken finger. So that is definitely a huge hit to TCU. So we have to see how they bounce back, just how we're seeing how Texas so far has bounced back. So I do think that TCU versus Texas game is going to be a very good game, even though TCU is no longer ranked with those 2 losses. But I do think that it will be a good game because both teams lost their star players, but one team has figured out, at least in the past few couple games, how to win without their star player. So we have to see if TCU has figured that out yet. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys supporting me. Continue to support these women in this amazing sport that they're playing at a high level that they're playing it at. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace, love, happiness.